Here we have the third of our three videos showing you our Skyrim melee build. This is the final, well, it's not the final of the whole run, but here we are at the end of at the end of the Alduin questline. We have defeated Alduin and Dragonslayer, and we're here at the throat of the world after defeating Alduin. So this is the this actual playthrough continues to defeat Merak and Hakon, but this is kind of the end of the proof of the pudding for this melee build. So the last video clip, we were about to enter Bleak Falls Barrow at level 1. You can see here now we've actually got to level 9, because prior to Bleak Falls Barrow we were just doing non-melee quests to acquire gear, but all the way through the quest line we were fighting, and of course that meant fighting means skills going up. So you can see here the massive change in the skills, and this is a really very focused build. You can see here that one-handed is the main focus, 50 skill points in one-handed, 30 skill points in block, and 25 in heavy armor. And that's exactly the way I wanted it. It's primarily a damage output build. We have block for when we want to tank. Most of the time we're not tanking, we're basically attacking somebody who's busy or flanked or whatever. So we attack nearly all the time. So we have a DPS build in one-handed, we have a tank build in block, and we have armor as just an insurance. You notice the armor hasn't gone past the first one. We haven't even got to well fitted. The first perk there, sorry, if I can get to armor, we haven't even got to this first special perk, well fitted. But in block we have got the first perk, and then we got power bash. So we're able to do an actual offensive bash with this bash, because you do damage with power bash, and we've got a shield which does double damage. So with this perk we can actually kill the enemy, and it's a very good, if boring, way of killing very top bosses. Any boss that's got, when you're not surrounded by enemies, when you've got one boss and they have got a very powerful attack, power bash will defeat them, because they stagger. They're constantly staggered, and you can just beat them to death slowly. I have a shield which does double power bash damage as well. Now the final end, when I go through all three quests, all three bosses, I'll get to 50, and then bashing does 5 times more damage plus multiplied by 2 times the shield, which is 10 times. At that point you can literally bash people to death. But right now we can actually use bash as an offense. You can use the shield as an offensive weapon. But of course our main offense is dual wield. So we haven't done any of the useless melee melee perks. We just took Armsman. That's very good. Always take Armsman to maximize damage. But now we've got dual flurry at 2 out of 2. That means dual wielding attacks are 35% faster. When we add that to Elemental Fury, our dual wields are absolutely devastating. We can take down big enemies in seconds. Of course, eventually we're going to go to dual salvage, but that's a long way away. So 50 got us just to dual. We got to 50 for dual wielding maximization, and 30 for tank maximization just before doing Alduin. Right. So let's take a look at the other. We're level 9. We're relying on a lot of skills now. Let's take a look at our armor. Our armor and equipment has not changed a great deal since the Bleak Falls Barrow, since the second clip, because we got nearly all the armor that we wanted. All we've added to that is we killed the Ebony Warrior, and we got the Ring of Peerless Wielding. That's new. That's it. We got the Ring of Peerless Wielding. You had to get a shout for that. To defeat the Ebony Warrior, you needed to get Unrelenting Force, so you had to wait until we got shouts. So I did that, and that's the best one-handed enchanted ring in the game. So that's boosted our attacks again. That's the only addition since level 1 really to the armor kit. Weapons again are all the same. We had all these weapons before we went into Bleak Falls Barrow. So our weapons kit was absolutely fabulous at level 1. The only thing I have added is, from the Ebony Warrior defeat, I got the Ebony Sword of the Vampire. So this is a health absorb health weapon. Sometimes when you're fighting a really tough enemy and you want to dual wielding with the ebony sword, that gives you back the health that you're losing every time they hit you. So you dual wielding is very dangerous. You die quickly, but the ebony sword of the vampire can keep you alive. And the other thing I got was Dawnbreaker from the Meridia quest. I got Dawnbreaker before going into Sovngarde, so that we could defeat all the undead in Skuldafn. So Dawnbreaker is the very best anti-undead weapon. The other change I made is my character is no longer a vampire. You can see that the vampire powers are gone, and that means because we're no longer a vampire, we can effectively wield the light of day. So when I was going through Skuldafn, the great undead dungeon before Sovngarde, I had the two best undead weapons in the game, Light of Day and Dawnbreaker. I also had other undead weapons, Red Eagle's Bane and a Silver Sword, but I had a huge selection of fabulous undead weapons. You can see my hit damage has gone up. When we went into Bleakfall Barrow, my damage had rocketed up from 9 to about 40 something. Now it's trebled again to 146. Again because my enchanted armor, and this time mainly because my actual skill levels. So my actual one-handed skill levels have gone up. So the damage is output's absolutely phenomenal. We also have yeah, that's the weapons. That's we also have a lot more skills and powers. So uh, you can see we've now got a whole range of shouts which we did not have at level 1. The most important by far is Elemental Fury. That's the one-handed, that's the sword and board or one-handed or dual wield shout, because it increases your weapon speed. So long as your second weapon, so long as one of your left-hand weapon is non-enchanted, you can cast Elemental Fury, and it increases your weapon speed by 50%. So it's a massive increase in damage output. I can also call a hero from Sovngarde, and I can also use this lovely shout called Cyclone. So the default force for shout for knocking enemies over is Unrelenting Force. Everybody uses that, but it's not very efficient. First of all, it tends to hit 3 or 4 lots of people, and also it takes 13 seconds to recharge. Cyclone, the first word is enough. You don't need 3 words. You can knock over anybody with the first word, and if they're if they're close by, you can knock over 2 people. So the default tactic for this build now at higher levels is always use Cyclone to knock them over, and then you kill them with dual wield. They get knocked over, they're ragdolled, it takes them at least 2 or 3 seconds to get up. So you get at least 20 free hits on them. So this is your default weapon strategy, Cyclone plus dual wield. It's very effective. Quite often I don't even bother with Elemental Fury. So that's my big shouts. The other the other powers I have are the other enchantments I already had, Ancient of Dibella, and I had also Seeker of Might. I had those at level 1, but I've added Ancient Knowledge, that's the Dwarven armor boost, and I've also added the Fire Within, which is the meditation, so I can boost my fire shout. And I don't actually use that, but I definitely do use Ancient Knowledge. That's a passive skill, so your armor is increased. Let's take a look at armor. I think at the last turn my armor was around 200, so now the armor is all the way up to 283. Not a huge increase considering we're level 9, but it's enough to keep us alive. We can stay alive. In reality, uh, we were at our most powerful relative to everybody in Skyrim when we were going into Bleak Falls Barrow, because the weapons kit that we had at level 1 meant that we were effectively fighting we were 3 or 4 times stronger than everything in front of us. Now we're only maybe 50% stronger, or double the strength of everything in front of us. So because the really cool weapons and armor that I picked up at the very start of the game, it obviously becomes less powerful as you get more powerful. It counts for less. So these armors kits that my build was actually at its peak going into Bleak Falls Barrow. But this build is really very strong, and the big difference, of course, that keeps me alive and defeats my enemies is the shouts. This huge collection of fabulous shouts makes me really, really powerful. So that's the end of this build. That's the end result of the Skahak level 9 warrior build. In the following videos, I will play through, I will show the videos of Skahak defeating both Mirak in Solstheim and Harkon in Downguard. But this is the end of the build. So let's wrap.